assembly, by the two accumulations created by practicing generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. And the four immeasurables, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from happiness that is without suffering. May they dwell in great equanimity, free from attachment to some and aversion to others. Krishna, everyone. So then to kind of revise the discussion that we were having up until the last session, then we were discussing about the Four Noble Truths, and we were able to discuss the first two truths, the truth of suffering and the truth of the origin of suffering. So in our discussion about the truth of suffering, then we discussed about how we talk about there being three types of suffering: the suffering, the suffering of change, and the suffering of pervasive conditioning. Now, in this discussion, then we were somehow able to recognize and identify the different types of suffering and the things that we take for sources of our joy and happiness to be actually sources of suffering. So when we are able to do that, then we move on to the next, the second truth, which is the origin of the truth of suffering. Where do all this suffering come from? So, as we discuss about the origin of the suffering, then the question arises: can we help it? Can this type of suffering in samsaric existence can be helped in the sense that can it be stopped? So, when this question arises, then we arrive at the exploration of the truth of cessation. We look for a means or a method to stop this suffering in samsaric existence. And when we come to a realization that it indeed can be stopped, that we can put an end to the suffering that we undergo in samsaric existence, then the teaching goes on to explore the path through which we can begin to stop suffering. Yes.
제가 근데 주도 되고 근데 제가 말하나 주고도 되마다 제고 되게 되더라. 아니 주감지 되마다는 되고 되고 예 시에디 내가 뜻이도 되고 그렇지. 아니 제가 주시오.
So then, in this presentation of the Four Noble Truths, then we realize that there are two topics that are being explored here. The first two truths talk about how we are bound to the sufferings of samsara, and the two later truths gives us the method through which we can begin to be liberated from the sufferings of samsara. So then, in order to explore what do we really mean by the truth of suffering, the truth of origin of suffering, the truth of cessation, and the truth of the path, then maybe if we explore it through an example, then it becomes a little bit clear. Let's say that we are in this hall, and then the hall starts to flood. There is water in the hall, and all the carpets begin to get soaked. So then, when we recognize that the hall is being flooded, then just a recognition of the fact that the hall is being flooded doesn't help us in any way. Because if we just do nothing about it, then the next day the hall is still going to be flooded. So then, recognizing that the hall is being flooded, which is a problem, is the truth of suffering, that you are recognizing the truth of suffering. And now the next course of action is to look at the source of the leak which causes this flood. So when you look for the cause, then you are looking for the cause of the suffering itself. So now, as you realize that there is a leak somewhere, or there is some damage to the pipes somewhere which is causing this leak, then you are recognizing the truth of the origin of suffering. And now, even when you know the origin of the suffering, just that basic recognition or identification of the cause of suffering doesn't help the situation. Now what you have to do, you look and assess the situation, see if it can be helped in any way, see if there is a way to actually stop this flooding. So when you do that, and then you come to a conclusion that indeed can be stopped by fixing the pipe or by doing something, then the flooding could be stopped. Then you come to the understanding that indeed this flooding could be stopped. And then this is the truth of cessation. And now when you actually begin to work towards fixing the pipe, or work towards elevating this situation, this flooding situation, then you are actually coming to what we call the truth of the path. So in this sense, now we realize that when we're talking about the Four Noble Truths, just a basic recognition of these truths doesn't help. You actually have to now go on the path itself to alleviate your own suffering or the suffering of other beings. So in this presentation, we realize that the way it is presented, the first two truths, the truth of suffering, is the result of the truth of the origin of suffering. And then later on, the truth of cessation is actually the result of the truth of the path. Yes. So then this discussion about the Four Noble Truths stems from our discussion about the life of the Buddha himself that we were discussing. And this is the first teaching that the first ever teaching that the Buddha gave in Varanasi. And then from there onwards, he began to give teachings on more complex topics in other different places. And so then the Buddha dedicated the rest of his life to giving teachings to numerous different groups of audiences before he passed away. Yes. So then, this is a rough and a very short explanation about the Buddha's life itself and the kind of main teachings that he gave during his lifetime. So if you're interested to explore it further, then I advise you to read the available literature on the internet or in the form of books. And now to kind of in the course of this discussion about the Buddha's life, then I want to kind of revise or recapitulate the main points that we discussed, the 10 non-virtuous actions, and then the 4 noble truths. And in particular, when we're talking about the 4 noble truths, I think it's important to remember the truth of suffering and the kind of different types of suffering that we fail to recognize. Yes. So now we're actually going to explore the root text itself, the songs of spiritual experience, and as we try to cover these texts, then I advise you to, if you have any questions, to note these questions down, and we will try to take them in the question and answer sessions in the evening. And if it can be helped, please note them down. But if you really need to ask the questions, then of course you can ask them. So then, if you now go through the songs of spiritual experience, the root text itself, then as it is customary, it starts with the offering of praises. In the first verse, it reads, "Your body is created from a billion perfect factors of goodness. Your speech satisfies the yearnings of countless sentient beings. Your mind perceives all objects of knowledge exactly as they are. I bow my head to you, O chief of the Shakya clan." So the first verse is an offering of praise to the Buddha. So in this in this verse, the first 3 lines, they talk about it's a way of offering praise to the Buddha in the form of offering his body, speech, and mind. So then, when we look at the first line, your body is created from a perfect billion factors of goodness. Then, when we say that someone has achieved enlightenment and someone has become a Buddha, then their body, their physical form, is free from all forms of contamination. So they have become their physical form has become free from all forms of contamination, and now that body is created from a billion perfect factors of goodness. So there is no speck of contamination in the Buddha's body. And then moving on, your speech satisfies the yearnings of countless sentient beings. So in this case, speech could be understood to referring to the Dharma or the teachings themselves. So the Buddha's teachings or the Buddha's speech satisfies the yearnings of countless sentient beings. So when the sentient beings hear the teachings, the Dharma, then they are able to see for themselves where their suffering comes from, and they also gain the tools through which they can work towards getting rid of the suffering themselves. So this is why it says satisfies the yearnings of countless sentient beings. And then the mind, your mind perceives all objects of knowledge as exactly they are. So the mind refers to the wisdom of the Buddha, and your mind perceives all objects of knowledge exactly as they are. So this particular verse refers to the ability of the wisdom of the Buddha to see all there is as exactly they are, or as they are. And this is a way of offering praise, as it is customary in the Buddhist tradition, to the Buddha as a teacher. And then the last line refers to the Buddha himself. I bow my head to you, O chief of the Shaka clan. The Shaka clan is the historical clan into which the Buddha was born. So as he was a prince of this clan, so he's being referred here as the chief of the Shaka clan. Yes. Yes. Are you able to understand it? Yes. So then moving on, the second verse, you are the most excellent sons of such peerless teacher. You carry the burden of the enlightened activities of all conquerors, and in countless realms you engage in ecstatic display of emanations. I pay homage to you, O Maitreya and Manjushri. So herein, being referred to as the excellent sons of the such peerless teacher being the Buddha himself, praised in the first verse. So in excellent sons, we do not really mean literally the son of Buddha. The subsequent students and the subsequent disciples of the Buddha are referred in the Buddhist tradition as sons of Buddha, in the sense that they carry forward the legacy of the Buddha and the teachings of the Buddha himself. So you are the most excellent sons of such peerless teacher. You carry the burden of the enlightened activities of all conquerors referring to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So you carry Maitreya and Manjushri, carry on the legacy and the enlightened teachings of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And in countless realms, you engage in ecstatic display of emanations. So herein, it refers to the fact that Bodhisattvas and Buddhas are said to have the ability to manifest in different realms, in different forms, in order to alleviate the suffering of other sentient beings. So this is what it means. And in countless realms, you engage in ecstatic display of emanations. I pay homage to you, O Maitreya and Manjushri. Yes. So then moving on, the third verse. So difficult to fathom is the mother of all conquerors. You who unravel its contents, as it is, are the jewels of the world. You are hailed with great fame in all three spheres of the world. I pay homage to you, O Nagarjuna and Asanga. So Nagarjuna and Asanga are considered one of the most foremost philosophers and foremost Buddhist philosophers of their time after the Buddha passed away. So then, going with the words, so difficult to fathom is the mother of all conquerors. So the mother of all conquerors, the conquerors, as we already discussed, referring to the Bodhisattvas and the Buddha themselves. And the mother of conqueror refers to the wisdom of emptiness, which gives rise to someone, which gives birth to, which gives rise to the awakening mind in the practitioner. So the mother of all conquerors refers here to the wisdom of emptiness, which is vast and profound. So this wisdom of emptiness is so difficult to understand, so difficult to understand. Yet these two philosophers or masters, Buddhist masters, Nagarjuna and Asanga, have written a lot of commentary and a lot of text exploring this wisdom of emptiness. So you who unravel its contents as it is. So as it is here referring to the intention of the Buddha himself, the enlightened intention of the Buddha. So they were able to kind of expound on the wisdom of emptiness as a philosophy in their time. And in their time, they were also known as the jewels of the world in the Buddhist tradition. So you who unravel its contents as it is are the jewels of the world. You are hailed with great fame in all three spheres of the world. So herein, the three spheres of the world are the above the ground, below the ground, and then beyond the ground. So we can understand the three spheres in this manner. So these two masters, Nagarjuna and Asanga, were like very famous in their day and age, such that their teachings and their commentaries survive to this day and age, and they are still being explored and expounded to this day and age. So the writer himself, Jitsongapa, with great respect, pays homage to Nagarjuna and Asanga, the foremost masters and philosophers of their time. Yes. So then, moving on, stemming from these two great charioteers with excellence are the two parts of the profound view and the vast conduct. You are the custodian of the treasury of instructions encompassing all essential points of these parts without error. I pay homage to you, O Dipankara. So then these two masters that we talked about in the third verse, Nagarjuna and Asanga, in the Buddhist tradition, they are known as the two great charioteers. So in modern day English, some people say that it can be taken to mean as trailblazers in their own sense in the Buddhist tradition. And these two are traditionally referred in the Buddhist literature as the two great charioteers after the Buddha passed away, who kind of really took forward the legacy and the philosophy and the teachings of the Buddha. So stemming from these two great charioteers with excellence are the two parts of the profound view and the vast conduct. So this establishes the authenticity of the lineage of instructions. So it is said that Asanga received the oral instructions on the vast conduct, the lineage of vast conduct from Maitreya himself, and then Nagarjuna received the oral instructions, the oral instructions on the profound view from Manjushri himself, who in turn received these instructions from the Buddha himself. So in this manner, the authenticity of the lineage of instruction is established. So stemming from these two great charioteers with excellence are the two parts of the profound view and the vast conduct. Now you are the custodian of the treasury of instruction, encompassing all essential points of these paths. Without error, I pay homage to you, O Dipankara. So Dipankara here refers to the great Bengali master Atisha, the 11th to 12th century Bengali master Atisha, who came to Tibet to spread Buddhism. So Dipankara has actually received both the oral instructions of the profound view and the conduct through an unbroken lineage which encompasses all the essential parts of the complete Buddhist path. So the author establishes the authenticity of the oral lineage of instructions coming to Atisha Dipankara before he began to give these teachings in Tibet, and so he, as a form of respect, pays homage to Atisha Dipankara. Yes.
rab jamboda chimagi jache wa de ra thaye ba de sura ta kon la de sura ma boye be ma chona ra ko la tawe mi ta gewe hini di sura ge zumi go be sha ra zumi di chi ne kawa ta ta wa thong thong ge de ji de go sha ra ende we anis gewe hini na ba zo ge na zo ta na ji mari be be na la timbi di wa di bi ka che wa she de suni ji za gewe hini si ra 남아도 이제 인자 안에 런자 수로 건 따위 미스 미나시레스 근데 디 가르치고 계산 타버지 깨와다 되다 두제 브라스 남아되게 아니 계획이니 디기 아니 두제 깨와다 깨와다 미래 누구 주니야다 되게 주니 친구가 깨데 탄데 타르반데 바다 아니 타바데 돈 존이죠 봐 깨데 타르반 제비 뭐 제자 되게 타반데 강사들 아니 타벨로네 땅통이 체통이 저거는 체통이라 제통이 근데 뭐 사실 에스트라 사람들이 되게 아마디 무슨 저 기대 기제도 아니 타벨로네 체에스 근데 초도 좀 근데 마치 너 자와 수게 라마다 아니 그래서 이루기라 자와 친구라 제외 유지 아니 제외 자체 상이 좀 받아 제외 돈에 아니 턱해봐 두지 친구들 내가 남았으니까 근데 이제 턱해배이 돈을 유지하더라 스스로게 라부들에 가르가르 보여요 아니 그러나 나한테 심하지 이제네 아니 됐어요 이제 남들 세시다 버려야 보고 제가 간지 가르쳐 빌라 남아디게 유지게 감다 여봐도 저도 참이 아니 쉬양 담을 숨는다 센세 시행 남다 왜 구샤체 근데 그러니까 남아 찍지 뭐 이거 남아 보이더라 되게 남아도 안 수주에 민감시 미카체 봐 그래서 수주 거 정말 통통이 남들 재미있게 되게 남아들어야 아니게 왜 샤츠 그래서
So then moving on, the fifth verse, you are the eyes to see all the myriad collections of scriptures. To the fortunate ones traveling to freedom, you illuminate the excellent path. You do this through skillful deeds, stirred forth by compassion. I pay respectful homage to you all, all my spiritual mentors. So at this point, the author Jetsongkhapa is now actually offering praise as a form of respect to all the spiritual teachers that he encountered during his lifetime. So then, and it also highlights the importance of actually depending on a spiritual teacher and the qualities of the spiritual teacher. So you are the eyes to see all the myriad collections of scriptures. So myriad collections of scriptures meaning the great collection of teachings themselves of the Buddha that survives. So you are the eyes to see all the collections of all the myriad collections of scriptures. So then the spiritual teachers that he had encountered in life, he is now comparing them to the eye, to the eye that sees and that kind of that sees the scriptures. So without the eyes to actually see, to read and to see these scriptures, it's impossible to get at the meaning and the intention of these teachings. So it highlights the point that one cannot do without spiritual teachers in the spiritual pursuit. To the fortunate ones traveling to freedom, you illuminate the excellent path. Now it goes on to describe the quality of a spiritual teacher. So to the fortunate ones traveling to freedom, you illuminate the excellent path. So then, just as in the first verse, the teachers are compared to being the eyes which actually read and see these scriptures and teachings, then to the fortunate ones, now one has to have accumulated the perfect conditions and the perfect causes to actually come into touch with the teachings, and also one has to have the willingness to actually study the teachings. So if these causes and conditions have come together, then one is called fortunate in the sense that one can now willingly approach the study of the teachings. So to the fortunate ones traveling to freedom, meaning seeking liberation from samsaric existence. So to the fortunate ones who seek liberation from samsaric suffering, you illuminate the excellent path. You actually show the excellent path which could lead towards liberation from samsaric existence. You do this through skillful deeds stirred forth by compassion. So then, it also further explores the qualities of a spiritual teacher, and you illuminate this excellent path, and you teach the Dharma to the fortunate ones without rigidity. You take into account the different kind of mental disposition, the different inclinations that different students have, and you do this without rigidity, always motivated by a sense of compassion to your students. So these are the type of qualities that he has found in his spiritual teachers that he encountered in his lifetime. So he pays respectful homage to all of his spiritual teachers that he had encountered in his lifetime. Also. So the sixth verse, moving on to the sixth verse, you are the crowning jewels among all the learned ones of this world. Your banners of flame flutter vibrantly amongst the sentient beings. O Nagarjuna and Asanga, from you flow in an excellent steady stream this instruction on the stages of the path to enlightenment. So now this ties back into the point that's being made about the authenticity of the lineage of the instruction, of the Lamrim instructions. So then, so these masters, Nagarjuna and Asanga, who are known as the two great charioteers of Buddhism. So there were many masters, and among all these masters, they were known as the two chief, two greatest masters of their time. So they are being referred here in this verse as the crowning jewels among the learned of this world. And then they are famous. Their works and their philosophy is famous throughout the world. And so from these two masters, whose philosophy, whose literature, and whose work survive to this day and age, the instruction, the text, the instruction on the stages of the path called Lamrim actually comes from that excellent lineage, which traces all the way back to Nagarjuna and Asanga. So it kind of establishes furthermore establishes the authenticity of this lineage of instructions. That's it.
근데 담발을 이거 담마래 라마 딱 고모고모 노래서 사제 좀 내내제 아니 그리고 그러면 이제는 그 그러면 이게 아니 달로마다 근데 뭐 주발이라 근데 뭐 담마다 그다 제일 무슨 말도 말이야 내가 담마리와 아 담발은 제만기 지고데 스타를 제만기 지고는 지다 담마 초기 주발이랬어 근데 이제 근데스는 중상한테 심다 중체보다 중상 뭐 예배들라 중상 동랑 뭐 예배 쇼도 있어요. 근데 중상부디 아니 아주 가사가 취해와 취도 가사가 준비를 자주는 거야. 와 취 그래도 뭐 가사가 취도 정말 타마다 있는 누구서 자주는 거야. 중상부 뭐지 타마다 취도 누구 뭐 있나? 다다가 남이 오는데 이거라. 근데 안에 초도 싫어. 여기 쳐도 아니 배된 레버를 시비자 좀 means 근데 아니 다다디 남래니 아니 배단 데미기 아니 되게 레시라 니시 레버 시바 레시디 아니 자초나 이라디가 다간다는 자초 나무나 초 담고 춤 따라서 상마 뒤오가 나지기 근데 남래 나로야 아니 다다 남래 영이 남래 나로라 주고기 지중상 가든 담래 마무리가 나 상마 주고를 뒤고 자초나
So moving on, seventh verse, since it fulfills all the wishes of beings without exception, it is the King of Kings among all quintessential instructions, since it gathers into it thousands of excellent rivers of treatises, it is as well the ocean of most glorious, well-uttered insights. So with this kind of superlatives, now the text goes on to highlight the qualities of the instructions themselves. So since it herein referring to the last line of the previous verse, the instruction on the stages of the path to enlightenment, or the Lamrim instructions. So since this Lamrim instruction fulfills all the wishes of beings without exception, it is the king of kings among all quintessential instructions. So quintessential instructions, or pit instructions, or personal instructions are short instructions that a realized master gives to his students in order to help the student along the path and in their practice. So then this Lamrim instruction is the king of king amongst all of like these quintessential instructions. Since why? Because since it gathers into it the thousands of excellent rivers of treatises. So in Buddhism we talk about the So in Buddhism we talk about there being 84,000 different teachings. So this Lamrim teachings, it kind of gathers into it all the essential points of these 84,000 different teachings in very succinctly, very concisely, without missing anything. So this is the reason why it is the king of king amongst all quintessential instruction, and due to that very reason it is as well the ocean of the most glorious, well-uttered insights. And now as these different there exist different oral lineages and different traditions, but in the Lamrim all of these kind of is gathered together as all rivers eventually flows into the ocean. Yes.
아니 이제 좀 양산이 작성되는 다 가지고 내외 들려야 레벨이 남의 수시 제와이는 수준 200점 못 가는 이제 전부디 아니 양산이 아주 잘하게 되고 샤니 딜러만 하면은 얘가 좀 잘 걸어 딜에 아니 숨도 수시 제대로 해서 되게 아주 좋았어요.
So then moving on, it helps to recognize all teachings to be free of contradictions. It helps the dawning of all scriptures as pith instructions. It helps to find easily in the enlightened intention of conquerors. It helps also to guard against the abyss of grave negative misdeeds. So it goes on to further explore the qualities of these instructions themselves. So it, referring to the instruction on the stages of the path to enlightenment or the Lamrim instructions, it helps to recognize all teachings to be free of contradictions. So even though we have questions, we have doubts about the teachings, but when we really explore the teachings, then when we get to the true understanding of teachings, then we realize that the teachings themselves are free of contradictions. We feel that there are contradictions in the teachings due to our own delusions, due to our own ignorance. So if we familiarize ourselves to the study of these Lamrim instructions, then these Lamrim instructions helps us to recognize that the teachings themselves are free of contradictions. And then it helps the dawning of all scriptures as pith instructions. So then, as we already discussed, pith instructions or personal instructions or quintessential instructions are short instructions given by a teacher to help his disciples along the path. So then there's this general tendency to always look for short, concise instructions all the time from your teachers to help you kind of a shortcut. So this is the approach a practitioner can develop. So then when you familiarize yourself with the study of the Lamrim instructions, then you recognize that all scriptures, all the teachings are actually in themselves pith instructions, that there is something that you can take away from all these, from each and every one of these teachings in the scriptures. Then it helps to find easily the enlightened intention of the conquerors. So these Lamrim instructions, there are different teachings given to different groups of people. So then we feel like there are contradictions and so forth and so forth, so on and so forth. But then the Lamrim instructions actually help us when they talk about the greater scope, the medium scope, and so on, that how we should understand each teaching in each particular context, their implicit meaning, their explicit meaning. So it helps to easily find the enlightened intention of the conquerors, and it also helps. It helps also to guard against the abyss of grave negative misdeeds. This is true too, in the sense that when you familiarize yourself with the study and the practice of the Lamrim instructions, then you guard yourself against the negative misdeeds of the body, speech, and mind, and which we know that if we engage in negative actions, negative speech, negative thought, then it could push us towards the abyss of suffering. So it helps us to safeguard ourselves against engaging in negative misdeeds. Thus. So then the ninth verse, therefore this most excellent instruction that is sought after by numerous fortunate ones, like the learned ones of India and Tibet, is instruction of the stages of the path of persons of three capacities. What intelligent person is there whose mind is not captured by it? So then, irrespective of the different kind of tradition that exists in ancient India, and irrespective of the different lineages and traditions that exist in Tibet, it is a common pursuit of all these lineages to study and to practice the stages of the path instructions. And so when all the learned ones of both India and Tibet revere these instructions, which talk about in order the stages of the path by stages of the path pertaining to the persons of three capacities. The persons of three capacity being the person of small capacity, medium capacity, and greater capacity. So in this order, when the stages of the path instruction illuminates the kind of what you have to do along each stage of this path, then what thinking person would not be captured by its content, by its essence? So it's like a call for us to study the Lamrim, that this kind of instruction should appeal to a thinking man or a woman. Yes. So then the 10th verse, it kind of talks about, if we read the 10th verse, then this concise instruction on distilling, concise instruction distilling the essence of all scriptures, even through reciting it or listening to it only once, the benefits of teaching the Dharma, listening to it, and so on, since such waves of merit are bound to be gathered, contemplate its meaning. So then it talks about the benefit of actually studying or reading the Lamrim instructions. So this concise instruction, distilling the essence of all scriptures, all teachings, even through reciting it once or listening to it only once, then you are bound to gather a great merit even by reciting or just listening to it once. And then if you actually begin to teach if you begin to engage in an active listening of these teachings or in actively teaching these instructions, then a great merit is bound to be accumulated. So if this is the kind of benefit of actually just listening or reciting the instructions and then teaching and listening to these instructions, then it is of utmost importance that one has to begin to contemplate and think about the meaning of these teachings. Yes.
아니면 소소냐 맨 제가 제가 소파시 somebody
So then up until now, the text, it started with an offering of praise to the Buddha himself, the subsequent masters through which these teachings and these instructions come. And then the writer also makes a point to highlight the qualities of the spiritual teachers that he encountered in his life. And then it also goes on to talk about the quality of these Lamrim instructions and the benefit of actually listening and studying the Lamrim instructions. So this is the general structure in which traditional Dharma text or Dharma literature begins. And now from here on, the actual content of the root text begins, wherein we begin to explore topics like the 6th grade perfections and so on and so forth. Yes. So maybe we stop here for now and break for tea, gather again in half an hour.